How do you actually improve at Marvel Rivals? This video is going to be a baseline guide for how to think about improvement in the game. It's going to cover each of the main elements that you can work on to be the best player you could possibly be. And if you apply some of the ideas or concepts from this video, you just will start getting better at the game. There's no question. So there are three main aspects that you can improve on in Marvel Rivals. I'm going to load up Microsoft Paint and draw them out. Okay. So the least important of the three for climbing in rank play is strategy. Now, by strategy, I mean, like, what is your plan going into a team fight? Let's say we have Groot ult, we have Moon Knight ult, but oh shit, they have Luna Snow ult, and I'm playing Groot. And I look over to my Black Panther and I'm like, hey, you try to force Luna Snow to use ult so that as soon as that Luna Snow ult is over, I can pop my Groot ult and we can try to win the fight. I personally think that team strategy is one of the most overrated things in rank play. Like solo queue, it's an absolute fiesta. People are doing whatever. To get two teammates to do what you want consistently is just not going to be that reliable of a way. I'm not saying ignore it. If you're duoed with someone, by all means, go for it. Go for all the cool little plays that you guys can do together. Just with random people, I think it can lead to more frustration than anything. So just don't stress out about team strategy. But the other slice of the strategy pie here is your individual strategy. For example, every single time I play the Tokyo 2099 Shin Shibuya or whatever it's called, the hybrid mode or convergence, every single time I play defense first point, I play a lot of Black Panther. And what I like to do is first point, I go up top, like on the roof of the choke, and I try to drop down as they're coming through the choke to do damage to them as they're trying to walk in. And while that Black Panther play might be a strong strategy, the more important part of me doing that so many times is that I've been in that scenario so many times that I know what to do and what not to do. I know that I can go into their spawn a little bit and grab the mega that's in their room. In fact, it's usually the safer option rather than trying to get all the way back to my team on the point. And then by the time I grab that health pack, by that point, hopefully if I used my dash, I'll have my dash back up off cooldown and I'll be ready to go back through them. But it's because I have that strategy, I have that game plan, I've kind of worked through the strengths and the pitfalls of how to play that exact scenario just because I've done it so many times. And you should consider trying to have at least some game plan going into each fight on any hero in the game, on any point in the game. Whether I'm playing Namor and I'm like, okay, this point I usually like to play that off angle over there. That really seems to work. I can place my turrets and I'm safe. Maybe my game plan for a certain point is just play with the strange, just play with the strange. And then if I see an opportunity to go for an aggressive flank, then I will. But for the most part, I'm just going to play standard and let the play develop in front of me. And I'm just going to try to shoot their tanks. That's a perfectly good game plan. But the most important part is just to try to be thinking about the game in this way. If you couldn't tell, I play a lot of duelist. But like I said, this applies to the other roles as well. Some heroes might have simpler game plans, more straightforward. It's more consistent what you're doing on a map by map, objective by objective basis. It's more cookie cutter. If you have no idea what you should be doing, nothing that you're doing seems to be working, watching a high rated player play the game can be a good place to start and see what they do and try to copy it a little bit. But all in all, I do think strategy is not the most important thing in the world. It becomes more and more important as you climb though. So I thought it was important for me to cover it. If you're an Eternal player, you do need to coordinate with your teammates and develop plans going into fights. But I think what's more important is what I'm going to call intuition. Excuse my handwriting. It's hard to write with a mouse and my handwriting was never good to begin with. Intuition is basically the decisions you make in a game that aren't a part of the plan. If strategy is the plan, intuition is everything else. Some intuition is hero dependent and some of it just applies to the game as a whole. These are like little decisions you make as far as like, I'm playing Luna Snow, my Groot is 1 HP, my magic is 1 HP, but my magic's going in and she has a chance of getting that kill. I should probably heal the magic before Groot. And if the Groot dies, but the magic kills too, then it was worth it, right? And these are things that you're not like consciously thinking about ahead of time. You're just kind of playing in the moment and doing what seems right and what feels good. Intuition is all about playing to probability. Nobody can find the thing that works 100% of the time. The best players will give themselves the best odds of winning each fight based off of the decisions they make in that fight. When to use their abilities, who to shoot and when, who to heal and when, who to damage boost. Should I take this fight now? Should I take the risk of 1v1ing their Hela before the fight? Or should I get back to my team and wait to group up? But if I killed that Hela, what if she had ult? Good players will have good intuition and they'll do the things that lead to success more often. It's all a probability game. It's poker, but it's in the moment. You don't get get to sit there and like run the probability in your head for a minute while you try to think of like what the other person's hand could be. The key decisions in Marvel Rivals happen all in like a couple seconds, and you have to make the right decisions in those seconds or just kind of lose. The best way to develop intuition is every time that you lose a team fight or that you die, just think to yourself, what could I have done differently? What was a better decision I could have made there? And over time, that pattern recognition will start to build up in your brain, and you will just start to make better and better decisions. If you make a mistake twice and you recognize that you made that mistake and you think through it, I bet the third time you're not going to make that same mistake.
And obviously everyone is different as far as how many times you can make a mistake before you'll actually start to see a change in the way you play. Some people might take them 5-6 notices of a mistake they're making before they actually start to see an improvement in their gameplay. Some people might make a mistake one time and be like, well, never making that again, and then they never make that mistake again, you know? I think it's more of like where raw talent comes in, where like a more naturally talented player might be able to improve a lot faster because they don't have to make a mistake as many times to learn from it and get better. You know the saying, hard work beats talent. If you're putting in the hours and you're working not only hard but smart, and you're like consciously thinking through this stuff, like I'm saying, you can beat that talented player in the long run. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you're hard-headed and you just won't admit fault to yourself, if you continually make the same mistakes over and over again, and you blame your teammates and you point the finger at everyone and everything else that you possibly can except for yourself, that person is going to run into a brick wall, right? Also, I think that this idea is kind of like why it's better to try to like limit your hero pool. Maybe have 2, 3, maybe 4 heroes that you're really good at, and don't try to play every single hero in the game, because the more heroes you're trying to play at one time, the more heroes you're playing on a day-by-day basis, the more mistakes you have to work through to actually get good at Marvel Rivals. I would say 2 to 4 heroes is a good starting number to get through like pretty much every rank in the game. Also, it's really important to, when you're looking at your own mistakes, to do it with curiosity, to do it with excitement, to analyze your own gameplay with the mindset of, I really want to get good at this game. It would be so cool to be good at this game. I really want to hit that next rank. And you're not like being overly harsh on yourself. It's scientifically proven that positive reinforcement works better than negative reinforcement. So if you actually want to improve, it's important not to get too hard on yourself for making mistakes, but rather you should be trying to like find some joy in the fact that you pointed out a mistake. Oh, that is going to make it so that next time I am less likely to make that mistake. And that is, in the long run, is going to win me more games, and I'm going to get more SR.
If you're not somebody who's good at like thinking through stuff like while you're dead and while you're walking back, if when you play the game you're just full on focused on winning the game, then what you can do is, you know, record yourself, watch it back later, and you're going to be able to see some mistakes that you make that you can work on in future games. And even if you are someone who thinks you can figure out what you did wrong in the moment in the game, I promise that if you do record yourself and watch yourself back, you will see more mistakes than you thought you were making at the time. If you're somebody who's like stuck in plat and you think you make good decisions, I promise if you record yourself and watch yourself back, you'll face the cold reality that you are just like every other person in plat. You are making some type of mistake. I promise. I think it's important not to like obsess over this. Like, don't like freak yourself out and like worry about every single mistake. There's no way to correct them all. Even the best players in the world make 20 mistakes per game probably, you know? Like, it's not about being perfect. It's just about trying to like iron some stuff out and marginally improve yourself every single time you play the game. The third element, which I would say is probably a little bit less important than intuition, I do think intuition is the most important slice of this pie, is mechanics. When people think mechanics, people think aim, right? I think a lot of people, when they think about improving mechanics, they think it's just aim. But I'm here to tell you that there is actually an equally important part of this pie within mechanics to aim. So if this whole thing is mechanics, then this part over here is aim. And this you might be neglecting in your games. You might not be, but there's definitely a lot of people that forget about it, is movement. In a game that you have to think about all of your abilities, all of the other people's abilities, and you're trying to keep track of all, and you're trying to fight with your team and make sure you're grouped up, and you're worried about your aim, the thing that a lot of low-rated players forget about is that movement is very, very important. And I'm not talking just like using your movement abilities or whatever. I'm talking like what you're actually doing with WASD, or I guess if you're on controller, the left stick. When you're fighting someone in the game, or if anyone's shooting you at all, for that matter, you should not be pressing W or S on your keyboard. The only two keys you should be using are A and D. And that's because like if you you W straight at someone, your head hitbox from their perspective is not changing. It's becoming bigger and smaller, but it's staying in the exact same position, right? And even more than that, if you're fighting someone, you shouldn't be pressing W and A at the same time, or W and D, or S and A. Like, you shouldn't be moving diagonally and trying to fight them like this. Like, so many people do this. Like, you'd be surprised how many people do this, because you're just making yourself an easier shot. The best way of moving is to A and D strafe. This is the best way of making you the hardest target to hit for the enemy. One trap that people fall into when it comes to AD strafing is that they'll do it like this. They're AD strafing so fast that they're not actually moving their head hitbox all that much. Sure, I might be spamming A and D, but I'm actually kind of just standing in the same spot. You want to make sure that you're in control of your character and you're taking these big like strafes, right? Like you're very calm and relaxed with your movement, because this is the best way for making yourself a hard shot to hit, like big AD strafes. As far as jumping goes, in this game, I see a lot of high-rated players like actually just spam jump whenever they're not fighting people. I would almost say, like, as a rule of thumb, if you don't think someone is like ready to shoot you, you kind of just should be jumping. And then once you're actually in the fight, that's when you're taking your AD strafes, your wide AD strafes that are, if you've never worked on this, if you've never thought about this, are probably wider than you're even comfortable taking. And this obviously applies to like every hero in the game. If you're someone who's like not sure if you have good movement or not, if you're not sure if you're doing the right things in a fight, I think it goes back to just recording yourself and watching it and just seeing it. Am I actually making myself a hard target to hit in my games? There's so many people in this game that lose more fights than they should, and they attribute those lost 1v1s or those lost gunfights, they attribute it to aim. But in reality, the issue all along was movement. If you have good movement, you will just like hit high ranks. It's so busted. People just can't hit someone with good movement in lower ranks. Like, if you're dying consistently, if you're in like silver and you're dying to Hawkeye a lot, you just seem to always be that guy that dies to Hawkeye or dies to, you know, Hela. Like, maybe it's your movement. Those characters are also very strong, so don't get me wrong, but at the same time, the silver players don't have the best aim in the world. So like, if you're dying to him, you're probably doing something wrong. And then obviously the last thing to talk about is aim. Aim is overrated. People care too much about aim, but at the same time, it is important. I'm not pretending like it doesn't matter. It's just, I don't think there's a way to like just get great aim overnight. Luckily, Marvel Rivals has like the best training range that I've ever seen in an FPS. It's very good, especially this underground area. What you can do is you can come to this parameters thing. I'm sure you've seen it. I like to throw on like mantis bots, generate type random. I throw them on mid range so they have more room to run around. Throw on dynamic, throw it on horizontal, timer off, movement speed. I like it on super fast, and start it up. And here you can really practice your mechanics on like every hero in the game. Any character that requires some level of aim, so like probably not like Cloak and Dagger, you can get like good aim practice in on these bots. If you do this before you queue up ranked for like 10 minutes, you're going to be cooking people, or you're going to cook. Like, every time I do this and then I load into ranked, I just smash some people because it's so good. You know, go for headshots on them, try to challenge yourself, throw on, you know, no ability cooldown so you have infinite ammo. Even like Black Panther, this can be a good warm up. Like, for Panther, I would turn off no ability cooldown and I just try to keep my dash up, like making sure I'm like landing these dashes, right? And you can practice more difficult things like ulting into a dash, like dashing straight out of ult, which can be difficult. So let's say I go this, and then I hear, and then I dash through that, and I still have my dash, right? And I did it very quickly. So if you main a hero that's not really aim intensive, this section of this video probably isn't like that important to you, although mechanics as a whole do matter on every hero in the game. And I wouldn't spend too much time doing this. It is a good warm-up. It is a good practice. If you need a little bit more than this, I do use like a Kovacs playlist. I can link it in the description. I watched a video from a guy named Shoddy. He recommended this playlist. He just seemed like he knew what he was talking about. The playlist is very tracking intensive, which I think is what you need for this game. You need good tracking. You need to be able to like follow where the heads are on the enemies. I'll throw it in the description. You don't need to aim train. You could hit the highest rank in the game without aim training, I promise. But personally, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing it, I don't know, 3-4 times a week, like nothing crazy. Sometimes I don't even do the full playlist. Sometimes I'll just do like 1 or 2 tasks and try to like get my score up on that. I don't know. I don't stress out about it. If you tried everything else and you still feel like you have bad aim, I think it can be good, especially if you enjoy it. But the most common aim mistake that I see is people that like keep their crosshair on like a point and they like flick from there like this. And this is how they aim. I can't aim like this at all, but somehow they do it and they still like hit some shots. People in like GM Eternal do this sometimes. Maybe not like hella players, but like support players in those ranks, but definitely hella players in like Diamond do this for sure. Is they'll do this and they'll like constantly be like resetting their crosshair. But what you want to do is you want to like kind of like track the head a little bit. And this is hard because I have super fast on. You want to kind of track the head a little bit, try to like micro flick at the last second onto the head. So like this. You want to make sure that you're practicing aiming the correct way. This is where you want to be thinking about your mechanics. But it's important that once you go into game and you're in the heat of the moment and the fight's in the line, the game's on the line, you got to hit your shots. It's important that you remember to apply this. You don't want to fall back to bad fundamentals. Track the head and then micro flick onto it when you're ready to shoot. I like the bots on super fast. It's a little bit like in baseball, like hitters in the on deck circle, like when they're getting ready to hit, will put a donut weight on their bat. It's an extra weight and it makes the bat feel really heavy. And then right when they're about to go up to hit, they'll take the weight off and it makes the bat feel super light. And so they can put a really, really strong, fast swing on it. Putting the bots on super fast is a little bit like that. It makes for a really good warm up, especially Mantis bots, because Mantis has like that extra speed boost on her kit on top of being like a small, skinny target to try to hit. Once you practice for like 10 minutes on super fast, then you go into game, the heads will feel like they're moving slow. Everything will feel slowed down and aiming will feel 10 times easier. And while you're down here, you should be practicing your AD strafing. Big wide strafes. You're not doing this. You're not W keying at all. You're just strafing left to right. And then you want to make sure you're applying that to the game as well. Some variations, instead of them just moving horizontal, you can make them move random. That's just going to make them jump a little bit. I like to do a little bit of both. Or you can throw on Iron Man or like Storm bots, so you can practice aiming on like vertical targets. Your aim will be crispy. But I think it's important to play the real game. I think you should be spending like maybe up to like 15% of your time working on aim, and then the rest should be like actually in the game, playing the real game against real people, because ultimately that's going to be the best way to improve. Specifically playing ranked play. Quick play might be real people, but the games can be really chaotic. You can have 4 DPS, you could have no supports, you could like the games get a little funky in quick play, which is perfectly okay. That's what quick play is for. But if you want to maximize your improvement, you should be queuing ranked. I would recommend playing at least like 3 to 5 games per day. Or maybe if you're someone who can only play on the weekends or something like that, maybe a better way of looking at it is like 21 to 35 games per week. If you're playing that many games per week, you will see improvement. As long as you're working on the other things, as long as you're eliminating bad aim habits, you are concentrating on your movement, you are working on developing your intuition by looking at what you did wrong. When you queue ranked, it's easy to just attribute all of your lost fights to, oh, my teammate should have did this, this, and this. But the truth of it is like, you're the one person that's in all of your games. So, worrying about your teammates and what they're doing is just not important at all for your long-term improvement. So if you're playing like 21 to 35 games per week, focusing on these things, you're just going to get better. It's important to not make it a chore. It's easiest to improve at something when you're having fun doing it. If the game becomes not fun because you're viewing it too in like the improvement mindset, then like it's okay. Like it's important to have fun. Like it's a goddamn video game. Like what are we talking about here? It's just personally for me, like improving at games and like trying to be good at them is what is fun. And so that's why I felt the need to make this video. Like this is fun. I like this. You do these things, you will climb to any rank in the game, like literally any rank. I'm probably going to go into more detail about specific things that I talked about in this video in future videos if you guys like enjoy this sort of thing, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. I hope you found this video either useful or entertaining or something that you had in the background, whatever it was. Thank you guys for watching.